den Knopf drücken. Yeah.
We're live. Welcome to the session of Tech Talent Talk. We are your hosts, Oliver and Birgit, and we have the series of events to bridge the gap between recruitment and engineering. Oliver, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Oliver. I'm doing recruitment for about 10 years, mainly in the areas of tech, sales, and marketing.
And I'm Birgit. I work as a leadership coach and engineering leader, and I advise people about creating high-performing teams through culture. We have a guest. His name is Sebastian Fuentes. Sebastian is a dinosaur by today's standards. Being only 44 years old, he started his first website with 15 years back in 1995 and took over his first role at Amazon in 1999. In the last 14 years, he has spent more and more time in leading roles in his previous 5 exclusively. He helps teams grow and sustain, and sometimes setting up teams fresh from the start. Hiring and interviewing are his main topics and also his day-to-day life. Sebastian, I have a question. In your last role, in the past 2 years, you have been interviewing over 65 candidates, and you have been in the interview process for more than a decade. What can you tell us about the state of interview?
Well, that's a quite broad question, but things have changed tremendously. First off, the candidate, or from my perspective as one being interviewed, things have relaxed throughout the years. So companies don't require live coding anymore most of the times. Companies don't require whiteboard coding, which I'm a huge opponent of. And so I think this side has relaxed a lot. On the side of the interviews, what I face day to day or faced is that candidates by now have the tendency to not precisely fit the CV they send. In the end, it's sort of an arms race, and it always was. Everybody optimized their CVs, and if you're a seasoned interviewer, you know that's a given. So like nobody is flat out 100% honest about what they have done or what they have not done or haven't. But by now, it is more and more common to be pretty laissez-faire about roles and stretch, and be also use professional services to optimize your CVs, which is a bane of my existence, to be honest, because it's like it requires a lot of energy from my side to scan through everything, identify if it was a human written text or not in the end, and identify also, okay, where are the strong suits of a candidate. I think this is a situationship, or we are in a bad place, to be honest, if it comes to that, because in the end, when I started interviewing, when I interviewed the first time in my life, from that moment on, I realized, okay, in the end, what I want is I want the one who's being interviewed to succeed. Like this is the goal of the meeting. Like this is the goal of the interview. You want them to be good as possible. By now, with this arms race which is going on, it happens that even I judge the candidate way more cautiously from the beginning. And that's like, it's sort of the nagging feeling in the background, like just possibly he was not as truthful as he should have been. And this is not good. This is unhealthy on both ends, I guess. Sorry for the long answer.
This is a really good answer, because it asks for more questions. And also let's recap it a little bit. Like let's say we are like 20-30 years ago, when we have applied for jobs. when I was at school, and this was my high school, I was being taught creating CVs way differently than even like from the standard of 10 years ago. I had to have like an image on it. I had to put like, of course, like the states of my education first, and then my states of my professional experience last. And then, I don't know, maybe some skills at the bottom, but also like some family related, like who is my brother, who is my mother and stuff. All of that, which is super outdated, and like no one should even care about it. Like if they care, then I don't know what this fuck is. Sorry for this word. And then I have learned to like leave unnecessary stuff out, such as the image, because it can like some bias can happen that why you're being sorted out. You can look weird to someone, even if you're not weird. Yeah, you just appear weird to someone. And you know what? Even names are being sorted out for some bias reasons. So this is also a reason why some processes have applied the anonymous approach. So you're only focusing on the skills and the stations and stuff like that. So you leave even the name out at some point. And now it's kind of changing again, like from the candidate perspective, right? You mentioned that we have AI, so someone is writing their like. Before I go into that, let's also go into a recruiter's perspective, and maybe also Oliver can put in some data and also insights. How recruiters have been looking into these CVs that have been handwritten and handpicked. What did we do way back then? I feel like the thing that we did way back then was I got like as a recruiter this much of CVs, and I take the half of it and put it into the bin, and the stuff that has been left, I look through and see what candidates fit. Then over the time, this stack of CVs has shrunken for some reason. And now I actually may be able to go through, but still a lot, where Oliver can tell us also a little bit about how he was looking through the CVs as a person. And then we go over into today's new standard. Yeah, Oliver?
This is like it's a very broad question. Let me put it that way. I mean, I wasn't born as a recruiter. By training, I'm actually a historian. So my answer to almost everything that you might ask is we have to look into the when and the how to really understand what's going on. And I think what you describe, we have the same age. We're both in the middle and the end of our 30s, Birgit. Sebastian, you are in your early 40s, right?
44. Depends on if it's early or not.
So I remember when I was at school in your age, Birgit, yes, I also had to learn how to write a CV, and it was completely odd, even to the standards of the 2000s. Back in those days, we had mass unemployment in Germany. 4 or 5, sometimes even 6 million unemployed people were fighting for the jobs. And it might have been, I don't know, I wasn't a recruiter back then, that recruiters got such a pile of CVs and haven't even had a look at that. They might have thrown 50% of that to the garbage bin. I don't know. I wasn't there. I feel that things started to change in the 2010 years, 2015, 16, maybe, especially in the tech industry. Yes, there were CVs coming in, but the quality of the applicants and the quantity got lower and lower and lower. So you needed to start to look for them actively. Like you as a recruiter needed to go on LinkedIn to find passive candidates who were not actively looking for a job change. This started to be a common thing in the 2010 years. It wasn't an ordinary thing to do for a recruiter in the 2000s, because the sheer amount of CVs that you got in were enough. I remember in 2015, 16, 17, and ongoing, even like in the 2020s, I had to explain to customers what active sourcing actually is, what LinkedIn as a platform does, what Xing is, and how the people I get through LinkedIn are different from ordinary applicants. There was no common understanding. Because the quantity and quality of applicants that you might have got through traditional ways like job ads was just too low. I think things are starting to change again, at least in the tech industry, that companies are getting more and more applicants in. Also, the quality is much better than 3, 4, 5 years ago, mainly due to the mass layoffs that we have seen. In Germany, but also in Europe and in parts of the US after Corona was over. And now I see that recruiters, and especially the companies and the hiring managers, becoming more and more picky, mainly because they have the quantity, they have the choice again. And sometimes it seems to me that we have a rolling back situation where companies are starting to treat their candidates a little bit more shady than they did it 2, 3, 4 years ago, because now they can afford it to finally do it. There was a statistic that just came out, I think yesterday or the day before, where a consultancy applied for 250 jobs, and they were measuring how often they were ghosted and how these numbers have changed over the past years.
Oh yeah.
So ghosting has seen an increase of more than 40% compared to the last year.
I have that statistics for myself as well. So I like also as a freelancer, you need to apply for projects, and I must tell you, this is worse than applying for full-time jobs. Because you think, okay, with a freelancer, you can do these kind of things. You can be like less, how do you say, respectful to freelancers because they can deal with it, right? But also, like everyone is a human, so whether you apply for full-time jobs or freelancing jobs, you may want to have a response, and even if it's the standard response, because then I know, okay, this is not fake. This is not a fake job. There is someone behind the job who has at least pressed the button, yeah? And acknowledge that I have applied for this project or for the job. And so also I check for like I every time I apply, this goes into my personal database. I know who a contact person is. I know who a company is. And people are doing the same who are applying for full-time jobs. And so at some point they will have a database, and they can tell for the future also for what kind of company they want to apply again on, which not. So they also put in notes of how they're being treated for themselves. It doesn't go to Kununu or Glassdoor. It goes into their own database. And so 2 years later, they will remember. They may not remember the company's name anymore, but they can look for it in their own database. Yeah. And then they will remember, based on that technique, if they want to apply again or not. And also it happened to me that some recruiters reached out to me and said like, hey, would you apply for this company? I'm not naming names. And I said like, maybe not, because I already had experience with it. And this was bad experience.
Let me quickly add something here. This is a thing that you have just described that is very often dramatically underestimated by companies, how bad reputation is being produced and how long it stays.
Yeah.
It's so easy to ruin your reputation, and it's extremely hard to build it up.
Yeah.
It also works the other way around, by the way. A couple of weeks ago, I've met someone in a private situation that I somehow remembered. I wasn't really sure where I've met this person. I just recognized there was something that was rather a bad experience. I was completely sure that I was a recruiter and he was one of my candidates. So I went to him and told him, like, listen, I know we have met somewhere a couple of years ago. I know it didn't went as expected. I don't remember the details anymore, but I just wanted to apologize. And this story was more than 5 years old. We talked about it in the end. He knew exactly which company I was talking about. He knew whom he have talked to. He knew my colleagues. He knew the name of the hiring managers. The story was so present to him. I was really surprised that he was able to remember all of the details. In the end, it turned out that he was able to differentiate between us as a person and the companies and the company that we were working for. The conditions provided by the company were the problem, not the people acting on the company's behalf. I was really lucky that he was able to see the difference. Otherwise, I would have felt really ashamed.
Let's come back to the previous topic to close the first one. And also move in like Michael's comment. He says like in the past, also he was one of the people who had to put in relationship status and religion in his CVs. And, you know, we have like fundamental rights, like you can be like, you can have any kind of, it shouldn't be like something that needs to be in your CV where someone like can check on your religion and decide based on your religion whether they want to have you in the company or not, right? Sebastian, what's your take on this?
No, it's if I see that in CVs, which rarely happens by now, I just flat out ignore that. Just like pretend I haven't seen, because it's like just okay. You mentioned the names before, and yes, names are super telling in most of the cases, not always, but I try to ignore them. For example, in France, there's actually a rule about names. They have to be shortened and not being identifiable by origin when you get the CV, which is interesting and a system I can relate to, because in the end it doesn't matter and it should not matter.
And then exactly, and then to close the topic, so we have the past, now coming to the present, because we're also talking about how it's evolving. Sebastian, would you like to tell us again, even maybe a little bit more broad, how do you see the evolvement, how like interview processes, maybe from the candidate side, but especially from your side, how do you see this evolving?
We have shorter rounds, and it's not excessive as it was back in my first role at Amazon. Like it was 4 or 5 rounds full of people and meeting everyone and telling your story, retelling your story every single round, like just same questions, and in the end you think, okay, this is a social experiment. Do they want to hear a different answer from me? It's in my on both sides of the spectrum that changed throughout in my personal experience. When I interview, I experimented a lot. I experimented with different formats. I experimented with different timings. For example, for quite a while, I deliberately did interviews during lunchtime, and by now I realize, okay, this is kind of forceful and quite a kind of unsettling for candidates, or can be. But I admit I did it in the past, and I did it just for the reason that I wanted to see the human, and I wanted to interact with a human. I didn't want to be forced in a situation where I just interact with a trained mask. which a lot of candidates put on when they go to an interview, because it is a unpleasant situation in the end. Like it's also later today I will be the interviewed one, and it's unpleasant in the end, because you never know what to expect. You never know if they want to grill you, if they want to or if they want to actually hire you. Sometimes companies have the tendency to do interviews for other reasons than actually hiring, which I think is super unfair. But it happens. And as you mentioned, also, I would like, as as a candidate would like to know if the job is real or not. This is something which also I increasingly see on the various platforms, that you see the same job offer popping up every single month. And
I
like,
have a
okay,
name who is doing that.
how many CVs you want to collect? Like, just it is a time waster for everybody in the room.
This is also due
That
to the contracts that you as a company sign with companies like LinkedIn or Stepstone. Those are always yearly contracts. If you don't have the jobs, but you still have the job slots to advertise, this is what many companies do to build a talent pool, because it's said this is the thing you should do as a recruiter if you don't have any live vacancies.
yeah,
It's a different thing if that really works out in the end, and how that appeals to the outside world.
It's in the US, there's the topic of the ghost jobs, like where a lot of companies put out roles which don't exist, like for sure don't. I think it's swept through to Europe as well, at least partially, possibly due to contractual reasons, possibly due to.
No, it does. It does. Like my name is from Germany. That I have that. Like, if you watch us, I know you are from Germany. I know what role this is that you're putting in every 2 weeks, and it comes out as a notification.
But I think I think companies should not, in the end, should not do that. I think it's not sustainable, and it's unhealthy for everybody in the room.
Why do you think companies are doing that, Sebastian?
I think there are several different reasons for that. In the end, it's first off, they want to be seen. So it's a form of marketing. I think bad marketing, but it's still marketing. And they want to appear as actively hiring. And I think also to put some pressure on their existing workforce. Because it's like they want to be seen as that they are able to hire other people. And it's not fair, and it's not truthful in all directions. If you are not hiring, you don't pretend to.
This is all right, but there's another reason to do that. It is about fooling your competitors. Because there are tools available that show you exactly what kind of hard skills and soft skills certain companies are hiring for at the moment. There are even tools to structure those informations and to see from where they get the applicants, what kind of skills they're hiring for, what kind of skills they are laying off. And as a competitor, you would observe that, and you would try to draw your own conclusions from that. A very popular case is Apple, who suddenly started to hire people from automotive. And no one really had any clue about the Apple car. The only thing that was really obvious, they tried to get people from BMW and other companies. And there are also companies who post jobs that don't exist in order to fool their competitors to appear working on projects that are just not real.
For sure, that is one of the reasons. Still, I think For myself, I always come back to something a former colleague of mine said. It was 210, and he said the whole IT industry is a false industry. Just like it's false economy. Companies do a lot of different things to appear that like they are growing, to appear that they are actively doing stuff, which some companies actually don't. And it's, I think, it we all, let's say, the individuals, separating the company from the individuals. As individuals, we would be better off if we could get past this, past these games. From a company, from a strategic standpoint, I can grasp it. I can understand that. Still, putting myself in the shoes of someone looking for a job, this is a horrible situation because you can't distinguish between real and unreal offers. And this is one of the reasons why these in the pre-talk we were talking about shotgun approaches, like sending out thousands of messages, auto-generated. Just it's the only one benefiting from that from this arms race are the ones selling the tools. Nobody else does. It's time consuming for candidates. It's time consuming for recruiters, for companies, and in the end, as long as humans are involved in this process, you will have an interview with a candidate. So whatever, so there is some sort of interaction will happen, and when the human or sitting in front of you is not matching up with the CV you got, you will not hire them. But the amount of energy we have to put in on both sides to get to the point where we have the human-to-human conversation is, from my perspective, increasing. To come back to your original answer, what has changed, and this is a change which happened in the last, at least from my perspective, in the last 5 years. Within the last 5 years, it got way more intense now and way now pronounced.
Yeah, and it's still changing, right? So we also have, so we're using more and more technology to generate CVs, and we're also using more and more technology to analyze CVs as well. So this is kind of one of the first steps in the recruitment process, where we have the CV involved and where we use nowadays also AI in order to generate the CVs, and AI also in order to analyze the CVs. And this is one of the newest change and one of the most impactful changes as well. And you mentioned also, Sebastian, at the beginning of the episode, that it's like, for you, it's difficult to distinguish between a human-written CV and an AI-written CV, so to speak. We also need to acknowledge in this context, we have AI that is analyzing CV. And I believe that many candidates are afraid of this new approach of like, oh yeah, I have like some sort of biased AI and I need to optimize my CV based on this biased AI so that I can go through the first step of not being sorted out. Do you remember the stack that I said? And like half of the top is like being put into the bin. Now it's an AI that basically goes through every of the CV and says, okay, here's a percentage of why this is not a fit. Here's a percent why it's not a fit. It's basically a different approach of like taking half of it and putting it into the bin. And so we have that. And now candidates are optimizing their CVs based on the buzzwords to go through this first step. And then on the second step, a recruiter comes to you and says, like, look, here are a couple of really nice CVs that you can look through. What happens now?
No, and then you go into the interview and realize, okay, the CV has been optimized so drastically that the candidate in front of you is in some cases not matching up, and he possibly, or he or she would have been a match to a realer CV, and then also a match for the role. But if I can see that, or if I can discern that there is a CV and it's not matching up to the candidate,
Sebastian, but I'm wondering what goes wrong that you are the first person in this recruitment process having the impression that there's something wrong, because it would be the job of a human being recruiter person to check if the CV matches the person, if the requirements are being met somehow. And if you're the first one noticing that there's something wrong, I have a lot of questions.
Like, we have also questions from the legal point of view. It may be different in the US, may be different in China, but in the EU, we have the EU AI Act. Let's bring this in just quickly. And the recruitment is, so we have 3 different classifications for the EU AI Act. And I'm focusing now on the high risk classification, because recruitment is definitely part of the high risk classification. What means high risk classification? It means that AI systems that influence people's access to essential resources and fundamental rights, which also means if a program such an AI system is trying to violate essential resources and fundamental rights, for example, discriminating someone based on their age, their image, their name, or whatever, then this is definitely classified as high risk. And who should take care of it? This is everyone who writes the model, everyone who uses the model in order to create a tool, and everyone who uses the tool. Yeah, which means every recruiter needs to take care and check the productivity processes based on this EU AI Act. And what do we need to check? So Oliver said, he wonders that Sebastian is the first person to recognize there's something wrong. You shouldn't be the first person to check that there's something wrong. Based on the EU AI Act, there should be a so-called accountability and human oversight. And this means that someone should check the system, that the system is working correctly. And this also means that the system itself should be transparent and explainable, which means the person who is having an oversight should also see, okay, this system works right and correct and based on our standards, and also based on the standards that we have set in EU, as well as in the country within the EU. And then there are also like data quality and bias prevention. So if I put someone out and give them an automatic rejection letter because of their age, that is not professional enough for the company standards. Everyone has seen this post on social media. This definitely has happened in the USA. So please, let's take care of our automatic approaches and productivity stuff. Yeah. And we also need to audit and document all of the stuff, like what did we deploy, how do we work with it, and so on and so forth. This is all inside the EU AI Act, and every recruiter and HR, whether they are technical or not, they need to check on this high risk classification and put in measurements and action points to comply with this one as well. Right? So Sebastian, you shouldn't be the first person checking, noticing that there's something wrong.
Let's say usually I'm not the first person. So other humans, or also in the past and also now, have seen these CVs already. Most of the time, and this is true for almost all projects I've ever worked in and where I was involved in the hiring process, the ones sourcing or gathering the CVs or being first contact persons don't have the ability to actually understand what is written there. That's like so technical recruiting per se, and most companies who are not pure development companies is, at least from my experience, not existing. So most HR people, for clear reasons, are not familiar with the technologies in use, with the connections between the things. And if there's someone writing about his experience in architecture and the tooling towards this, nobody can expect to understand what he writes who's not familiar with architecture, at least on a surface level.
And this is how you make yourself irrelevant as a recruiter.
So, yes.
Seriously, this is how it works. If you're not able to provide such a service to the hiring managers, to have read and understood the CV, what's the point then? Are you the one just forwarding the CVs? Okay, there is a script for that. It doesn't need the person to do that. But seriously, if the recruiter is not able to understand the CV, then there is a really substantial problem. This company might have hired the wrong person.
Like, the question goes to you both. What can we do to improve this step?
To be honest, from my perspective, I don't like leaving out the responsibility stuff, but I'm not really sad about the amount of CVs I get. So I'm fine with all the CVs I get, even if they are not fitting. I'm fine with HR person doing HR things, from my perspective.
Because we have also, like Michael, for example, has the same complaint. Like, without bashing all HR people, I sometimes feel like every HR department is doing its own thing. It's really funny to watch, especially when there's complaining about the lack of applicants and skilled workers. So also Michael has recognized, hey, I don't get skilled workers. Why is that so?
Well, from my perspective, I think what we can do is we can actually, it happens, and it happened also in the past, that the HR people gathering the CVs and doing the sourcing do a first screening conversation. Is the human in front able to talk? That's like one of the things, if required, to for the role. Screening the basics. Is he available? Is he there? So that I don't have to care for that anymore. If I'm responsible for doing, let's say, the technical part of it and screening the technical part of it, I'm fine with that. It's from my perspective, that's nothing bad. And maybe, and it happened also in the past, like just giving that there are recruiters who actually understand the technical underlyings and the foundations which are required to do a role. Perfect. But as also in development, these perfect 10% are pretty rare in the end. And then you have basically one person doing the job of a whole technical HR department, doing the recruiting, doing all the other HR things, which is a tremendous amount of work, and then also doing interviews. So happens, and some of them are awesome, but it's not the standard, and I'm fine with that. And I think, coming back to Michael's question, at least from my perspective, and then I'm shutting my mouth, what we can do is we can distinct, and we can say, okay, the first contacts for CVs are just doing the regular stuff, or the basics, like availability, maybe cultural match, whatever. And then the technical expertise is then done by technical people, because that's their daily life.
Yeah.
And it's their daily work.
Which means you would also, like, for a senior position, that's, by the way, this is like a case that I have talked with a person yesterday evening. if you have a person that has 8 years of experience in a different situation and like in the different context, professional one, but is in that company for 8 years, yeah, and wants to apply for a different position within that company, that is a senior position. Yeah, so this is announced as a senior position. Would you then go and say, I would like to have people like that who possibly have zero experience, but may come with promising skills that fit into that role? Or would you like to have the recruiter to sort the people out based on the X years of experience?
Interesting question. I recently had a similar case. For the role I was hiring, it was required to come with the experience. And it's always depending on the role you're hiring for, at least from my perspective. If I have the chance, which rarely happens, but if I have the chance, hello, cat.
Nice. We have a show cat. Hello.
It was just a matter of
Finally,
time.
it happened.
Yeah, I closed the door to avoid this. It rarely happens, but when it happens, it's a blessing. If I'm allowed to hire people who are not experienced in the stuff but have promising qualifications, or sometimes, and once, that was a bright spot in my history, or that one spotlight. Hiring without any experience, like being able to hire someone who actually didn't have any experience at all, but was on fire. And she was amazing, and I was so glad that I managed to do so, because it's difficult. It's difficult when you're starting out in, I think, any kind of job, but it's especially difficult in IT. And it's also, again, becoming increasingly difficult, because people look for seniors, for experienced
Absolutely.
people, and not for juniors. And this is also there. This goes to out to all companies listening. For God's sake, hire juniors. Build up your own workforce. Like, just always hiring seniors also doesn't get you where you want to be in the end. Because it's if you hire out someone who is a trainee, right, just give them the chance and give them the opportunity to develop themselves in the role or getting into it, they will stay for way longer. They will honor that as well.
Because
and most of the times they are cheaper.
People want to have some sort of development. So as I mentioned, like a person being 8 years within the same company and is already looking for a different perspective.
Yeah.
Luckily, inside that company. I mean, it could be outside the company, right? So let's imagine that. So we are humans. We maybe want to have some change, maybe not. But there are people who want to have some change in their life. They want to experience something different. And so they're looking for the next step. They're looking for a different step, whatever. Yeah. Which means they need to be able to be junior again at a new position. And I must say, like, when I applied first as a developer, it was also difficult for me to get a job. Before being a developer, I was a graphic designer. It was difficult for me to get a job because, like, with lack of experience in the profession. Then, after being in development for a couple of years, I applied for leadership positions. This is the same thing. You are a junior in that field because you don't have the X years of experience in that field. But I must say, like, when you first land the job, you need to be able to have an environment where the person can make many mistakes on a safe space, inside a safe space. Yeah, because out of these mistakes, the person can learn and therefore become senior quickly. Yeah, so it needs to be an experimental space. It needs to be someone where person can try out things and make mistakes in that space. And this is so important. And this is so important and also efficient to have this type of environment to grow your own seniors, basically.
Okay, I think I have to be mean.
Be mean.
Isn't that all common knowledge? So I'm wondering, why are companies not doing that? And from what I've seen, there are multiple problems associated to this situation. Companies might want to have seniors who are productive from day one. You know, this is what they are always hoping to get. But in fact, lots of companies even fail to attract those seniors because very often they have completely different needs and expectations. And, you know, honestly, lots of companies don't even ask themselves why someone should work for them, why an experienced person should work on this project in this particular company. They're not even thinking that far.
Especially when you have like the most talented person, or you want to have the most talented person on the market, then you need to be able to offer something.
Yeah, and we're not just talking about money. Money is just
No.
one factor of many. What I see at the moment, and I'm not just talking about the tech industry, I'm also talking about other industries, that some companies are stretched very, very thin. They have created high expectations to their shareholders sometimes. Some other companies have committed themselves to projects or to results or to customers. Now they need to deliver and they can't. So the only thing they're hoping for, the holy grail, so to say, is getting seniors on board very quickly to make them productive from day one, which leads to them being overwhelmed, them not being onboarded very well, and them being burned very, very fast. So I think
Can you give an example of this one?
companies know that building up an internal workforce, hiring juniors, hiring mid-level people, that makes sense on the long run. But some companies, they don't have this long-term perspective at the moment. And I think this is an extremely crucial and dangerous situation. When I talk to clients, I have, especially at the moment, very often the situation that they have taken on new projects starting in early January, and now look at the calendar, they don't have the people yet to really work on these projects. And of course, they then, you know, start to give the pressure to recruiters or to external headhunters. But even those cannot help them because all these problems are artificial. They are made by themselves.
What can
Happens a
we
lot.
do in this situation? Like we've identified, okay, we're hiring seniors, or we need to hire. I don't think that like we in our local positions as recruiters and engineering managers and leaders can change the fact that, you know, the stakeholders want to act fast, right? This is like a different political situation. When it comes to recruitment, and we have a senior that we need to hire, and the senior gets onboarded and needs to be able to like be productive from day one. And I can give you examples where it actually happened, where actually onboarding should be the focus because it's quite a complex project. What can we do as engineering leaders and recruiters to improve this situation?
It's a difficult and difficult question, and I think there's not a single answer to this. What I can say from my past is when I was in positions where I hired, I also was in the position of being sort of a team captain, team leader, whatever, however you want to call it. Different companies, different structures, but in the end, when I was in such a position, I saw myself as a shield. this is basically my role. So if you are in a leading position, you have to shield your team. How can you shield your team? You can try to shield your team from outside forces. This includes taking pressure and being the one who's been the lightning pole for everything. And if I think it is necessary to have a ramp up phase and onboarding, which takes, let's say, a month or 3 or 2 weeks, I need to make sure that this is given to the candidate and given to the new hire. If I know, and it happened also, that I'm not able to provide this, like just the situation, hire needs to be productive from day one, I tell the candidates during the interview. And because it's in the end, it boils down to being fair on both sides, and they need to be aware of what they have to expect.
I tell the candidates too, but I also tell the hiring managers. What you are expecting here is not realistic. You don't set up this person for success. What you have promised to your shareholders is almost impossible to get. I think what you have said, Sebastian, can be boiled down to the simple phrase being able to say no.
Yes, happens all the time. I got called out for saying no way too often in companies and projects. I think saying no is one of the most important management and leading abilities. So if you want to see yourself as a leader, you need to be able to say no, internally and also externally.
And it's also a gift. So if someone says no to me, it's a matter of transparency that I get. Like when I get a no, then I know with what kind of things I'm actually dealing with. If I have had to make strategic decisions. And so as a stakeholder, it should be a gift for me if someone says no to me, because then I can make the right decisions after that. Right?
And usually a no is in most cases the most honest answer.
Yeah.
You can expect from someone. And as we had in the conversations we had before, honesty, at least on a broad level, is the core of human interaction in a professional environment. And yes, there's no 100%, and nobody should be 100% honest. It's usually brutal, and nobody will like to work with you anymore. But we need to reach a level.
Like to come to a different topic also. So we had experienced and inexperienced candidates also, but sometimes we have people who are just rock stars in their field. So what do you think are the advantages and disadvantages of the people, and how do you deal with rock stars developers?
To be bluntly honest, I never hired rock stars. I avoid rock stars as much as I can. And if someone puts himself in the shoes of being one, it is a major red flag for me.
How do we define rock stars? What is a rock star?
As the industry defines it, it's the one developer who is worth 10 times more than the others and can replace at least 5 other developers. And yes, humans like this exist. Like they are there, but they are rare, super rare. Most of the times they are not available, and this is what's impactful. The most impactful thing for me, and they are usually not team players, because they are aware of their at least perceived wealth. And for me, software development in general is a team sport. And if you want to have a functioning team, you can't have one rock star doing his own thing.
I think this phrase was coined by someone from Microsoft. I'm not sure if it was Bill Gates, but it was Microsoft for sure in the late 90s and early 2000s. I heard that once from a CEO who said, there are these developers who are 10 times better than the others, so it's worth to pay them 5 times more or 8 times more because they're so much better. And this is exactly what we want to have here. And I said, okay, well, I have heard you. What kind of environment, what kind of challenge do we want to offer to these rock stars? Are you able to provide an environment where they want to work in? Yeah, this type of conversation is extremely boring. It's not thought through.
Exactly. Let's say we have like someone who has like a super high IQ, has a special interest, and this happened to be like IT, and maybe some IT in the scientific field. So all of these kind of things. I can explain everything in detail, and when an answer comes, this comes in detail, so there's no gist at all. And most of the time, the people have focused on their technical skills and technical abilities, which means maybe they also have left out the training, the ability and the skills of communication and social interaction and social norms and stuff like that. If we have a company, where could we place a rock star with that amount of IQ?
So a very common misunderstanding is that once you're good at something, you should have responsibility over things and people. Like if you're good, you need to become a leader. I think this is totally wrong. This is outdated. Such a person could become an expert. Being good at something very special and then, doing the research, thinking things through, drafting the concept, and then bring the knowledge to other teams or the entire company. This might be something suitable for this person. But as Sebastian said, software development is a team sport. And usually these rock stars, they lack the soft skills. And this is what burns everyone out next to them.
And why this is a team sport, my take on this is it's a team sport because at some point a rock star, like a single person creating a software, would also be the only person understanding the software. But what happens if the person leaves for whatever reason? And then you have no one taking care of that said software, right?
Just imagine this person get hit by a bus. Yeah.
One bus vector, yeah.
Realistic scenario. I think what's also underestimated is that over the past 1 or 2 years, soft skills became increasingly more important. So having such a rock star with very strong hard skills is it's not longer something to really strive for, because on the long run, soft skills are so much more important, especially if knowledge is available around the corner.
Given that the environment is willing to support their software development team with the necessary tools and the time and also the knowledge, 100% sure. I think there are situations where someone who's a subject matter expert, I love that term.
Oh yeah.
Is so good and better than everybody else. Usually you need to put them into a position where they can, and most of them, they are happy about this or would be happy about this if they can be in the position where they own this topic, this one topic, and not being forced in the position where they have to own everything. And in my past, I worked with these beautiful minds. Often I came to the realization that I'm not half as good as a developer as they are. Like, just I'm not, and I will never be, whatever I do. But I'm a way better communicator. And sometimes I was luckily able to understand their train of thought and was able to translate that and communicate it to others. And in the end, sometimes it helps to have someone like this on the team as well. Being able to translate, being able to communicate to the rest of us mere humans, compared to the beautiful minds. I'm a huge fan of Lilo and Stitch, and Lilo is doing the perfect thing in my book. There's a place for every monster. You just have to find it, and sometimes it's difficult, and sometimes it's not you who can offer the place, but somebody else. If someone describes themselves, and I had actually CVs stating I'm a superstar or I'm a rock star, certainly
Nice.
not.
Even the rock star needs a band.
But hey,
Yes.
like if someone actually knows that they are categorized as such and just want to be transparent about it, that's nice.
Yeah,
right?
sure. I don't. To be honest, I don't know. I think a bit of humbleness helps a lot. I
It
also
came
had
to my attention that I might be a rock star.
Yeah, I mean,
Lovely.
like I know that there are people who like to overestimate themselves, and that's actually true for the majority of the humans. And I mean, if someone really likes to talk about themselves as a rock star, we can possibly give them a coding challenge that is suitable for a rock star, right?
But yeah, that's it. I've been there. I was on a project, and I was called a rock star, and
Mhm.
I was young, and way younger and way more inexperienced, and I, for a brief moment in time, believed in,
Oh yeah.
in
Yeah.
and it gets over your head, sure. Like, you're the one, and in the long run, it took a while, but I left the project, and I was so convinced of myself and so full of myself as well that I took over 2 projects at the same time,
Ooh.
which is a bad idea anyway. Like, just, but I was convinced about my ability to rock this. Turned out I was not capable of. Turned out I burned myself. I burnt myself out, so much so that I was not able to work for a couple of months afterwards because I had
Mhm.
severe physical issues. And I burned 2 customers. If they ever see this, I'm super sorry for this still, and it's in my heart. I learned my lesson. And usually, if you have someone putting themselves in, I'm the rock star here, and I'm the coolest guy on earth. Life haven't given them the chance yet to develop
Exactly.
and to fail.
But this is a nice anecdote for the end of the session to talk about rock stars and how to include them and maybe how to not include them, and also how it feels to be one, but maybe not, because also we know that rock stars can be burnt out as well. Even if we, like many more people, tell them that they are rock stars. I have a last question, Sebastian, for you. And this is our signature question, which means I'm asking you, what was your What was it again? What was your best experience, interview experience? What was your best interview experience that you had?
On which side of the table?
And this doesn't matter. You can choose the best experience.
I think, let's say the one I'm most grateful for is actually the one I talked about already. It was the one without any experience, like just straight from the boot camp, or like coding boot camp. She paid this coding boot camp for herself, just by having the chance to break into the market. And I interviewed her together with the CTO, and we were sitting in a room, and 5 minutes in, it was clear that, let's say, it does. I can't.
Wait a minute. What's happening? Like at the last seconds of this session.
I think it's his connection.
That's cool. That's cool. Then let's thank Sebastian for this wonderful session. As he's is he coming
Yeah,
back?
he's back.
Because that would be super.
Sebastian, are you back? Okay, let's close because we're at the end, and we thank Sebastian for being here tonight. And we are already baking the next session, which will not be live, but it will be sent out on the right time. And I'm asking you to follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. This is where we distribute our sessions. And yes, you can watch it later. You don't need to be live here, but you can just subscribe to these channels and then watch it and listen to it as you are. Sebastian, would you like to finish the sentence that you had before?
I'm sorry if it was me. My internet seems to be stable at least, but yeah, I just said this was the one where I'm most grateful for. She was super unexperienced, but I had the chance to hire a trainee or junior, super unexperienced, and she turned out to be an awesome developer, asking the right questions at the right times. And this was the one I'm most grateful for because it gave me the chance to do that what I always wanted.
That was a nice end. Yeah, this is why I'm saying, like, people trust the people with fire in the eyes, and hire them, train them, and as Sebastian said, they will be inside the company for a longer time. Thank you, Sebastian, and we see each other.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
We see each other in 2 weeks again with a new episode of Tech Talent Talk. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.